Okay. Hello,
Hello.
everyone. Hope we are all having an amazing event. I am Victoria Otta, and I am excited to be here. I will be talking about a technical framework for inclusive web development. So, a little bit about myself. I am a women tech maker ambassador. I am a product designer. I am an accessibility advocate, a co-founder for Accessibility Nigeria. I do a little bit of community management. I write articles, and most importantly, I am an open source advocate. And so, in this conversation, this will be our objective. We'll be talking about understanding accessibility, the principles of accessibility, case studies and real life examples, and why accessibility matters. And without much ado, let's jump right into it. Um, I usually love to start my sessions with this quote: accessibility is necessary for some, but beneficial for all. And while that is being said, let us all put on an imaginative cap and imagine this scenario. Imagine we're living in an alternate universe where people who use wheelchair are seen as the norm of the society, right? People who use wheelchairs and people who have dwarfism, that height is the standard height, the societal normal height, right? Like people usually say in today's world, right? Imagine that scenario, and because the standard height is the height you are when you're sitting on the wheelchair or where you have dwarfism, every structure is built for that particular height. The doors are less than 4 inches, 4 feet long. All entrances have um, sliding stairs instead of normal stairs. That's how everywhere is. And we who are, say, 5 feet and above, 6 feet, are seen as the people with disabilities, right? We are the people with disabilities, and they are the people with abilities. If you're in that situation, how do you think you're going to fare in that environment? Will it be easy for you to fare in the environment? With that illustration in mind, let's get into what accessibility is not. Accessibility is not an afterthought. The web should be accessible to everyone. Now, let us point in that illustration into the web. This time around, not the environment, but the web, right? Now that we know what accessibility is not, let us find out what accessibility is. Web accessibility refers to building a web that accommodates users with disabilities, has ease of access, right? This is the general definition of what web accessibility is. In practical terms, we're talking about disabilities, right? In practical terms, we're talking about disabilities. And when we talk about disabilities, we're talking about three groups of disabilities: sensory disability, motor disability, cognitive disability. And if you're talking about visual disability, examples are things, even things that are common to us, like cataract, total blindness, color blindness, astigmatism, myopia, hypermetropia. So yes, people who wear glasses have a disability. I know not everyone who wears glasses wants to admit that they have a disability, because not everyone identifies as someone with disability, but it is a disability, right? Motor disabilities, wheelchair users, Parkinson's disease, arthritis, paralysis, amputation, stroke, whatever it is that limits someone from using either or the four of their limbs, right? That's motor disability. And cognitive disability. This disability is mostly overlooked. Why? Because it's not a physical disability that people can see. So it is often overlooked, like autism, Alzheimer's disease, dementia, dyslexia, ADHD, Tourette syndrome, and the like. The list goes on and on. So when we're talking about disability, this is what we want to have in mind. Now, if you want to talk about web accessibility, you cannot overlook these four principles of web accessibility. A11Y is used in place of accessibility. Accessibility, A, Y, then the words in between A and Y, 11 of them. That's why sometimes we use A11Y interchangeably with accessibility because the word is so long, right? Back to the four principles of web accessibility. We have perceivable, operable, understandable, and robust. For your web to be accessible, it must pass these four principles of web accessibility. What does this mean, right? What would this mean? For short, there's usually an acronym. If you notice, the first letters are in bold letters, right? This is because the acronym FOR is usually used for these four principles of web accessibility. It's easier to remember and it's easier to jot down, right? When you say FOR, you're able to remember perceivable, operable, understandable, and robust. Now, perceivable simply means that your information must be perceivable to all the senses and not just the sight. What does this mean? If you're building a website, you're not just building it for visual users. You should bear in mind that people who cannot see will be able to use your product. So it should also be perceivable to hearing. People who cannot even hear as well should also be able to use it, right? That's what perceivable means. All senses. Not everybody perceives information on the web with their sight. Other means of um other means of perceiving information is there, right? Operable, your end users must be able to understand the web content and the functionality of the information. It simply means that it should be able to be operated in different technologies. Your keyboard, it has to be keyboard accessible, right? Keyboard accessible and other forms of technology that you use to operate a web. It should be accessible to those um, technology, right? Understandable. It is as simple as it looks, right? Your website should be easily navigable with just keyboard and the voice controls, right? And it should not be um too technical. Shouldn't have so much jargon. People who use your product should be able to understand what you're talking about. Okay? And robust, your website must effectively communicate information to all users, including users that use assistive technology, and it must remain compatible with evolving technology. So if there's going to be an update on your product, right, other forms of assistive technology should be updated on those products as well, right? It should be accessible to all assistive technology and all kinds of technology for your products. Now let's bring it home to technical strategy. We've talked about rules and guidelines that would help you build an accessible web. Now let's talk about technical strategies and steps, right? More or less test cases, how you can actually implement accessibility. Now, the beautiful thing about accessibility is it is very versatile, right? All the members of the software development life cycle can implement accessibility in their work, right? Everybody from the designer to the writer to the community manager, everybody has a responsibility to implement accessibility in their work, right? But for now, these are very technical strategies that focus on people who are in charge of building the web, building products for the web, right? So some of them are semantic HTML, right? When building your product, there's this um there's this want to want to explore, right? A lot of people, a lot of developers want to explore, they want to try out new things. But semantic HTML provided for specific labels should be used, right? Because how people with disability perceive the internet for example, blind users, they don't, they obviously don't perceive it through sight. So the browser converts your domain, your DOM and your graphics into what is called accessibility tree, right? This accessibility tree is just a combination of semantic structures, and this is how people who do not have who are blind, right, and cannot perceive the web visually assess your product. So the only way they can successfully assess this product is if your product is built using semantic HTML, because this is what the screen reader can identify, right? If you're supposed to use a label for columns and forms, specific tags for columns and forms, and you don't use these tags for these things, and use an alternative, your assistive technology does not read that, right? They have to read those specific tags. So semantic HTML should be used. Utilizing area. Not everybody knows about area, right? Um, area is used for dynamic content, right? Sometimes content tags are unavailable for specific content. This is where area comes in. Always know how to enhance your code in a way that it is accessible using area. Area makes that possible, right? Accessible forms. Properly label your forms. It's one thing to use as semantic HTML. It's another thing to properly label these forms, right? Because, like we already stated, people who have visual disability do not perceive the web through sight, right? They have to use screen readers, and these screen readers announce what is on the screen. So they have to listen to what is on the screen. If these forms are not properly labeled, they'll find it difficult to actually carry out tasks, right? This is the whole point of building forms in the first place, for people to be able to fill them, carry out tasks, and fill in information that are required. So proper labeling is very important. Multimedia, closed captions and transcripts are very important. When you're building um when you're building media content, right? Closed captions should be made available. Users who cannot hear depend on closed captions to understand the content on the screen. What is beautiful is it transcends from users who have hearing disabilities to users who are trying to learn a new language, or users who do not understand the language being spoken. An example is your dramas in different languages like Japanese, your animes, your Korean dramas. You're able to enjoy these dramas because of your closed captions. So you see how accessibility is necessary for some, but beneficial for all in the long run, because you don't have a disability, but you're enjoying the benefits of using a closed caption. Testing techniques. Testing products are important during your building phase, right? You don't have to wait for the product to go live for you to start testing. You can use tools like Lighthouse, or you can even do manual testing using tools like NVDA and JAWS, right? As you're building your testing to make sure that it is accessible. Now, why is it important to consider accessibility? Excuse me. 15 to 20% of the world population has a disability. That's over a billion of people. That is a lot of number. You might say, oh, they're the minority, but a billion people is a lot of people. And the beautiful thing is that the web is diverse. A lot of people use the web. So imagine omitting up to a billion people. Legal reasons. There are laws that back people with disabilities, laws that protect people with disabilities, right? You tend to pay fines, and it's bad for business. It is beneficial for individual, society, and businesses, right? It grows your business. Imagine plus 1 billion people using your product. That's extra engagement, extra money for your business, extra visibility for your business. People are able to trust you because they see you as a founder or a stakeholder with empathy. And it promotes diversity and inclusion. The world, what is the world without diversity and inclusion, right? People want to be included in all activities, and the web is not excluded, right? So if you want to learn more about accessibility, please scan my blog, check out my blog. There are a few articles I've written on how to start off with accessibility and implement accessibility in the web. No matter the area or field of tech you are in, this will be very helpful. Let us connect. Follow me on Twitter or LinkedIn. Um, I would love to connect with you. Thank you. I'm done.
Thank you for that, Tori. I had a few questions from one or two things I picked up.
Okay.
I had a few questions from one or two things I picked up as you're speaking.
Sure. Please ask.
So what's like okay. What motivated you to focus on accessibility in web development for starters?
Um, this question usually comes up when I think it started off as interest, right? Every tech person is looking for or wants a particular part of tech they want to niche down in. Started off as research and interest, and then interest yielded empathy because for you to go full into accommodating people a lot of people see as the minority, right? There's going to be an amount of empathy to it, right? So it started off as interest and then empathy, and it went on from there. I don't know if I was able to answer your question.
Yeah, but then that also brings about another question of like what's the difference between accessibility and usability and how do they complement each other?
Right. So accessibility has its end goal as usability. So see usability as a mother, right? Engulfing all the other aspects of UX, user experience, right? It's part of a user experience, or let's say they're siblings, but usability is like the older sibling, right? For a product to be usable, it has to be accessible, right?
So what comes?
Usability
Yeah.
is the end goal of building a product, right? Because now we've come to understand that accessibility does not just favor people with disabilities. Every other person benefits from accessibility, right? So if your product is accessible, then it will grow its usability. I mean, that's the relationship. If that did not make it more complicated,
Yeah, I
was
understood. I
it?
understood.
Okay.
It's understandable. But then okay. So at what point should we like when it comes to accessibility, at what point should we prioritize it more? In the initial
At
stages
every
of
point.
design or no?
At
Okay.
every point. But because designers always start a product, in fact, let's say the researchers, right? People who are in charge of research, they are in the forefront. Designers, user experience people, they are in the forefront of accessibility because it's like starting from the very beginning. Things are easier when you start from the very beginning. Imagine having to build the product completely and then you find out that there are grassroots um, design issues, accessible issues, then you have to now go back again to design. So it's amazing for everybody to be part of it. The researcher, the person who is going to do sampling of maybe an environment or the target audience, right? Know who are these people, what exactly is their accessible needs, right? Coupled with what you've gotten in general knowledge, right? Then the designer to implement accessible design. Because if you notice, I started off by saying that everybody in the SDLC has a role to play in implementing accessibility. But I focused on that of the developer, right? But for the designer, there are steps for you to take to implement accessibility. Your layout, your design, color, psychology, using the right type. Okay, these are things that are specific to designers. Use the right type, complementing colors, the right colors, good layout, good contrast. Okay, these are some things you're supposed to do as a designer to ensure that at that first step you've done what you're supposed to do. Then the developer takes it off from there.
I also remember you said that the four core principles were POUR, P-O-U-R.
Mm-hmm.
So does it also apply to mobile web development
It
as
applies to
compared to
every web,
no,
everything
as
in the
compared
web.
to traditional desktop websites? Because like you said right now, you have to consider the layouts, there's something that just came from seeing right now. So I'm trying to look at it when it comes to cross-platform development and like
Mm-hmm.
desktop websites. Is it still the same principles that apply cross or
Yes. So this four, it's there's something called uh the WCAG guideline, web accessibility guideline, right? It's a document that um helps people implement accessibility basically, right? So it covers not just desktop, because when you say the web, it transcends from desktop to mobile to even a smartwatch, right? To an assistive tech, to Alexa. It doesn't even have to be a screen. It has to be something that is digital, basically, something on the web, right? So from the website to the application, there are laws that guide them, and core actually covers all. But then in the WCAG guideline, then there are specific aspects for mobile. Hold on, I think I'll probably just share it to you on your WhatsApp so you can check it out.
I can't see if we have any other questions on the chat or on the comment section.
Sorry.
And now I can't see if we have any other comments or chats on the comment section. So I guess from me and my team it's just to wish you a good evening and to thank you for your time. We've really learned a lot from you today.
Thank you.
Have a good
It
evening.
was nice chatting with you. You too.
Likewise.
Bye. Bye.
Bye.